When it's time to go beyond basic image corrections, Photoshop offers some fantastic tools for both retouching and creating composite images. Let's see how they work. When it comes to removing unwanted objects from images, CS5's new content-aware technology lets you achieve in minutes what used to take hours. Let's take a look at how we can achieve that. We're going to go into our Chapter 6 folder, and I want you to open up the file CAF01. Now before we get started, I'm just going to move this Layers panel out of the way. I'm going to dock it back where it was initially, next to Channels, and maybe put Layers first. And I'm on a Mac, so I'm going to go into full screen mode with this image by pressing the F key. And let's just increase the magnification here a bit with Command plus. If you're on Windows, that would be Control plus. Here's a great image for us to demonstrate what content-aware fills can do. If we take a look at this image in the park and decide that it's a great shot, there's just too many people in it, we can get rid of some of them. We can get rid of them with extreme prejudice, as they say in the movies. I'm going to zoom into 100% view here, actually. That's Command 1 on a Mac, Control 1 on Windows. And if we want to get rid of, let's say, this woman down here, we simply select the lasso tool, and we can just use freeform lasso here. We don't need to make a super precise selection. I'm simply going to draw a rough outline around her. And now what I'm going to do is go to Edit Fill. The shortcut is Shift F5. And instead of picking a color from this Contents menu, I'm going to use Content Aware and simply hit OK. And there it is. She's gone. If I deselect with Command D, that's Control D on Windows, you can see how Photoshop in one step has removed the woman and replaced her with patches of this grass field. Now, to the well-trained eye that's paying very close attention to that area, we do need to make that a bit more seamless to make it completely believable. But don't worry, in a few moments I'm going to show you how to take a content-aware fill selection and make it absolutely perfect. But for an automated one-step tool, this is pretty phenomenal. What about this guy over here? Let's see, we could select him with the lasso tool as well. And once we have our selection, again, Shift F5. Fill using Content Aware, and he's gone. Notice that Content Aware has actually duplicated the bag or blanket or whatever that is laying on the grass, so we now have two of them side by side. Now we'll clean that up in a moment, but this is a great opportunity to point out something that should be obvious. Photoshop is blind. It doesn't know a tree from a blanket, from a bag, from a person playing volleyball. So when you're using automated tools, you do have to double check the work and make sure that you're not copying something that's going to be a telltale giveaway that you've worked on this. Now you don't have to use the lasso tool here. You can instead use the spot healing brush. So I'm going to go to the spot healing brush. The shortcut for that is J. And make sure you've actually selected the spot healing brush. Make sure that you see this little outline here to the left of the Band-Aid, because that will give you access to Content Aware up here in our options bar. So make sure that you have Content Aware selected here. And with our brush, we can simply paint over areas, and they are automatically filled with surrounding areas in a very believable, useful manner. Let's get rid of this guy too. Alright, so let's just zoom back out here, doing Command minus on the Mac. That would be Control minus on the PC. And let's see, I'll go back up here to the beginning. Here's where we started. And here's where we've ended up, with those people gone, as if they never existed. In many respects, this is a perfect image to demonstrate content-aware technology on. And when you see results like this, you think, wow, I could use this on all of my images and it will be 100% right all of the time and I'll never have to make any manual adjustments. Well, not quite. The content-aware fills and heals are most successful when you're taking something out of an area that has a random sort of background, like with this grass. Now, if there were a group of people and we were taking somebody out of the front row, for example, it wouldn't be as effective. But when you have large areas of random patterns and texture, it works really phenomenally. Let's take a look at what we would do in more challenging situations. Let's close this image, and you don't have to save it. And let's go back to our Chapter 6 folder and open the file CAF02. Again, I'm going to press F to go into full screen mode. I'm going to drag this over to the left a bit.
Now let's say in this image there are some things that we want to remove as well. Again, we'll select the lasso tool, pressing L on the keyboard is the shortcut, and let's start with this little object here on the brick face. So I'm going to simply draw a rough outline around it, Shift F5, content aware, and hit OK. I'll do Command D to deselect that. That's Control D on Windows. So again, that's a pretty seamless result. Couldn't get any easier. What about if we choose something a bit more complex? We're going to take out these pipes here. So I'm simply again going to drag around here a rough outline. Feel free to use any selection tool that you want. And again, we'll hit Shift F5, use Content Aware. And now if I deselect that, you can see it actually did a reasonably good job, but we're left with this little artifact over here. The key to using Content Aware Heals and Fills is that most often it will be used in conjunction with another tool. So I'm going to select my Spot Healing brush here. I'm going to verify that this is also set to Content Aware, and I'm going to paint over this area that didn't take so nicely in the first pass. So we'll simply click here, paint like that, and presto changeo. Now we have a very realistic looking result. What about if we take this newspaper here that's been left, and if we simply paint over this? Okay, now that's not quite as successful. You can see we've got these little smudges here. To get rid of that, don't give up on the tool, simply paint over it again. Content Aware randomly selects the exact areas to copy from, so each time you use this tool you'll get a slightly different result. So multiple passes of the tool can usually be pretty successful. So we'll make one more pass right here. And we're cleaning this up very nicely. There's this area in here that we'd like to get rid of, and there we go. That's looking pretty good. Maybe one more pass over here. We're just underneath the door, and we're fixing this up quite nicely. So again, multiple passes here can lead to success. So don't give up after the first or second try. And last but not least, let's go back to our lasso tool here. And we just want to get rid of this mail slot. And again, we'll press Shift F5, use Content Aware. And that one worked out great. So let's do a quick before and after look here. We'll scroll up to the top. This is the image that we started with. And here's after just a few passes. So again, the idea of multiple strokes and multiple passes with Content Aware Heals and Fills will get you to results that are just quite simply pretty phenomenal. I'm going to take a look at one more image here. Let's close this file, and you don't need to save it. Back in our Chapter 6 folder, let's open up CAF03. Again, I'll go into full screen mode by pressing F, zoom in here, and here I'll go in at 100%. Actually, let me zoom back out here a bit to make more of the image visible. Now what we want to do is remove the wire here. And traditionally this has been a tricky issue when the wire crosses over detailed or textured areas like the roof of this house. We're going to use our Spot Healing brush set to Content Aware mode, so we simply press J on the keyboard. Now the key to making this work, if we just click and drag one long pass over here and just continue and continue and continue, the sky may look pretty good, the roof may be okay, but it's really going to start to fall apart down in here. So what we want to do instead of one long continuous stroke is use multiple shorter strokes. I'm going to start my first stroke painting over the wire and stop just before it gets to the roof. So we're just working on that sky area, and that's seamless. You can't tell any work was done at all. Now what I'll do is I'll start just inside the roof line, come in here, and I'm going to stop before I get to this gutter. And that is not bad at all. That's actually very, very good. Now you can see we've got a little smudging up here in addition to the area that we didn't touch, so we'll simply come across here on that part of it, and you can see very good results with a minimal amount of effort. Again, the key is that we're using a series of shorter individual strokes as opposed to one long stroke. Okay, we'll come in here a bit, And we'll stop before we get into the roof. That again isn't bad. Maybe a little touch up here on that side. Maybe hit this again here. And again, we're just giving Photoshop as many chances as it needs to make this look pretty believable. There's a little smudge here. Let's see if we can move that out. And let's make a longer line here, see if we can clean that up. And as you can see, that one actually made it much worse. Let me undo that with Command Z. That would be Control Z on Windows. And I'll actually undo a second time. I'll step backwards, and that's a handy shortcut to have. It's Option Command Z on a Mac, Alt Control Z on Windows. So let's come back out there and let's fix this up here on the roof. There we go. That's pretty good. And again, you just keep making multiple passes until everything aligns nicely. Now here we'll get rid of this part of the wire over here. This, again, since it's over a dark area, that's a pretty straightforward edit. Now here is where we're going to have some problems. And this is where we're going to call in some additional tools. What we want to do here is not really rely so much on the spot healing brush and content aware fills so much as we want to use the standard healing brush so we can set our own source points. So I'm going to press J again till we go into the standard healing brush tool. Notice up here we can choose a blending mode to paint with. We're going to leave that set to normal, leave source set to sampled, but it's very important here to make sure you check this aligned sample box. This is what's going to tell Photoshop to continuously sample as you move, so you're not always painting from the same location, and that's very important to get believable results. So what we want to do is simply, in getting rid of this wire, we want to choose a series of lights here in another part of the image that we could simply erase this whole section with. So I'm going to press my Option key here on the Mac, Alt key on Windows, and I'm going to choose this guy right here because it's pretty close in shape to what we're dealing with before. And if you'll notice, I'll make my brush bigger so you can see this. As I drag over the image, you can see this overlay that shows what my first painting stroke is going to look like. Now this can be very helpful. If you find it distracting, you can go up to Window, choose Clone Source, and you can simply turn off the show overlay like that. I'm going to leave this on for now, and let's get rid of this and bring my brush size back down. And let's start from here. Looks pretty good. And we're simply going to paint that over. So we're starting to get rid of the wire there. We can find another series of lights to get rid of this one as well. So let's see, I think we'll try, we don't want to try the same one because then it'll be obvious that we've worked on it. Let's try this guy over here. And we'll simply line this up visually and paint down with here. So we're starting to get rid of that wire very, very nicely. We can continue on like that. Now, one area that we're definitely going to run into some issues with is this object that's protruding out of the house here. It looks like an old sort of air conditioning unit of some sort. What we're going to do here is use this clone stamp tool because we're not trying to really sample and blend items here based on texture. We really want to replace something completely. So I'm going to press S to get my clone stamp tool. I've got a very small brush size selected here. What I want to do here is set my source point over here to the right, and I do that by holding down the Option key and clicking on a Mac. That would be the Alt key and clicking on Windows. That will select my source point. And if I simply paint over here, I'm completely erasing whatever was there. And I can do that. Click here to get rid of the last little bit of the wire on that side. And we can go up here, Option click to set a source point, and I can simply paint over that. And there's one last bit of wire here. And there we go, the wire is removed. Now, for the sake of keeping the training at a reasonable length, I've left some imperfections here, and this is what I want you to do. At the end of this lesson, before you close this image, I want you to zoom into a 100% view and go in and fine-tune some of these areas. Pay close attention to the tiles in the roof, as well as the edges of the gutter. Now remember to use short, multiple strokes, and if one stroke doesn't give you a desired result, simply try it again. This will be a great opportunity to practice using both content-aware fills and heals in combination with the more traditional cloning tools like the healing brush and the clone stamp tool.